Right, so today we're going to talk about grids, Formula One grids and Sylius Grid. The idea is that we're going to showcase the latest DX improvements we've made on the Sylius Grid. And I hope you're going to enjoy what we've got to show. So fasten your seatbelts, please. So who am I? I'm Estelle. You saw me this morning. I'm a developer at Akawaka, and I'm a Sylius key contributor. I'm mostly working on the documentation of the Sylius stack, and we're going to use a Sylius stack project to showcase our improvements. I wasn't always a developer. Actually, 10 years ago, I used to be a teacher, and I was also a big Formula One fan. So in 2016, I was lucky enough to go to the Barcelona Grand Prix and see Max Verstappen win his first victory. So that was a fun experience, and I highly recommend doing it. And I'm going to present this show with Loïc.
Thank you, Estelle. Hi, everyone. My name is Loïc Frémont. I'm a technical expert at Akawaka, a Sylius key contributor too, and Sylius stack maintainer. We will present what's under the hood of the Sylius stack and some DX improvements on the Grid package. We'll use a demo project to illustrate the new way to configure grids, and we'll introduce huge improvements and the user experience using Symfony UX Live components. Akawaka and Sylius, it's a true love story. We are partners since 2022, and we are 4 Sylius key contributors. Valentin, Florian, probably there, Estelle here, just here, wrong button, and myself. After a fresh install of all Sylius stack packages, we have this ready-to-use dashboard. It feels so empty, a blank page, but here is the admin dashboard from the test application inside the GitHub repository project, so you can see what it can look like in a real-life project. Sylius stack is a set of autonomous packages which put together let you build admin dashboard, admin panels very quickly. The grid bundle is a package to render data list. It's super easy to introduce new filters, columns, and customize the rendering of every single part. The resource bundles allow you to configure operation for your resources, which can be a doctrining entity, for example, but you can use any PHP object as a resource. It uses Doctrine or RM and debug drivers for rapid application development, but now we have a provider processor system, which means we don't need Doctrine entities anymore. Okay, on this talk we will focus on the Grid package 1.
Okay, so I want you guys to imagine that you're Toto Wolff. So you're a Formula One team manager, all right? So you got 2 pilots normally, and you want to have some, I don't know, statistics. You want to have a beautiful admin dashboard to see how they're doing in the races. Luckily, there is a free API called OpenF1, so that's what we're going to use for this project, no database, and the Sylius stack, as mentioned. And we're going to showcase 3 main things. So the make grid command has been improved, and 2 brand new attributes, AsFilter and AsGrid. So we're going to take it easy, start slowly. I don't want to wake you up too much in the afternoon. So the first thing we want to do is to have a grid, so a list of drivers, plain and simple. I just want their name, their pictures, and I'm happy. How do I do that? I need 4 things. I need routing and operations, so that's going to be with a Sylius resource. I need a data model. that can be a Sylius resource, but it doesn't have to be. It actually can be any PHP class. I need a data provider, and so like we're all used to Doctrine, but in our case, like I said, we're just going to use an API, no saving in the database. And a Sylius Grid, which is going to like display, how do I want to display each field? Do I need some sorting, some filtering, pagination, and so on? That's what the grid does. That's the 4 things we need. So step 1, I need my resource. It's plain and simple, right? It's just information, nothing major. And I need to define the operation for the grid, so that's the index. And the index requires a grid. That's the only operation that works this way. So I'm going to create that grid, but I'm a lazy person. I don't want to write that code. I want it to be generated. And the problem I have is that that command used to only work with Doctrine entities, and I don't have a Doctrine entity. So we've improved it so that it works with any PHP class, okay? Any PHP class means a Sylius resource too. So now I can run Symfony console make grid and my resource, and it should generate a grid if I've done my job correctly. And that's what I get. So it's a brand new grid. It's got, I didn't write them all down because I don't want to bore you, but for each field, it generates the add field statement, except for ID. That's a very specific one. It doesn't include it. And then you've got a bunch of actions that you can enable if you want, like, I don't know, delete, create, edit. But you will have to set the operation in the resource. It doesn't like come out of the box straight away. So I have my grid. Only 2 steps left. What do I get on my interface? Oh,
oh la la, Estelle.
what have I done?
What the hell have you done? Yeah, everything is broken. Okay, the error message is clear. Sorry. Doctrine does not manage our Doctrine class, so it's not a Doctrine entity, so that's normal. Thus, we need to create a custom data provider. Before creating it, just see how to declare it on the grid definition. So we just need to declare it on the AsGrid attribute using the fully classified class name, like this. And to create this custom grid provider, and in order to make things simpler for you to understand, I will use 3 baby steps, tiny steps. So take it easy, it will be very simple, I promise. First, we will create it without any data. Easy. And after, we'll use hard-coded data. And finally, we use data from the F1 API, which is a feature we will need. First step, let's write an empty data provider. We just need to implement the data provider interface from the grid package, like this. And it requires a get data method. You can return everything you want, but the default template will handle Pagure Font objects, so let's create it. We use a fixed adapter with 0 data. And it works. Everything is well configured here. That means the grid using our custom provider perfectly. So this is okay for the first step. We can move forward with hard-coded data. So we use a fixed adapter here, and we instantiate our 4 drivers using the constructor. We define the numbers, the first name, the last name, and that's okay. Fantastic, 4 drivers appear in a beautiful data table. We're better, right? So let's continue and finish. It will be as easy as before. We just use the real data from the API. We have configured Symfony HTTP client to retrieve data from the API, and we can choose the URL adapter from Pagure Font because the API is not paginated. Indeed, it lists all drivers in the response. And like this, sorry. Good job. All the 20 drivers appear on the list. It's pretty easy, right?
Okay, that was step 1. It's very easy. In this step one, we've generated a grid, and I don't know if you noticed, but it was written as in AsGrid attribute. So this is brand new. It came out in the 1.4 grid bundle version, if I'm not mistaken. And we highly recommend that you use it because it really makes your life easier. So I just want to pinpoint to a few things. What does it do? It lets me define a data provider. This is in the case where maybe I'm not using a specific doctrine data provider, and this is our case, we have an API. So here you've got the possibility to do that, or you can just define the resource class, so same idea. Resource class can be any PHP class. Again, it doesn't have to be a Sylius resource. And small tip, if you already use a provider, you don't need to define the resource class because you would be telling the same thing twice, right? You already know how to fetch the data with the provider. So another thing we've changed, which is not directly related to the attribute, but we've changed the build grid method to an invoke method. Why? Because we want to respect single responsibility principle, just one responsibility for this class. We've managed to remove all of the extra methods that were there before, so now it's just easier and nicer. But if you don't like it for some reason, you can still use the build grid method. Where is it? Yeah, you can still use the build grid method, it works behind the scenes, or you can define your own custom build method with the build method argument up there, right? And one last thing you can do is to change the name of your grid. So here it's meeting, and if you don't, because that's optional, it will just use the fully classified class name. So I think that's everything you need to know about AsGrid. So 5 things. I'm just going to sum them up quickly. So invoke method instead of build method. Build method lets you define your own custom build method. A lot of building. And provider argument lets you define how you fetch your data. You used to have to have a set provider method on your grid builder. It's just easier this way. Resource class, again, saves you another method. And name instead of a get name method again. So we've made everything condensed all in one, which is nicer and easier. And yeah, just more modern PHP development. So that was say practice 2. And now it's time for practice 3, right? So I have a grid that does nothing, it just displays information, and we all know we like filtering information. It's much nicer. In my case, I'm gonna try to look for French drivers, okay? And so we can already filter. You know how to filter in Sylius. You've got some built-in filters that you should be familiar with. You've got string, Boolean, date, entity, etc., etc. Or you can create your own custom filter. That's what I want to do today. So to do that, I'm gonna create my country filter. And with the attribute, I can define what symphony form it represents. So here, I'm using the Symfony country type, but it could again be another even more customized one, still a Symfony one. And then I need to tell the Sylius stack how it's going to look. So what twig template to use. And so I've got my twig template, so that's the visuals. And then the actual filtering of the data should be in that apply method that you see below. But I have an API, so I have a custom data provider. So I'm not going to put the filtering here. I'm going to put it straight in the provider. So here, just leave it blank. Then I put my filter on my grid. So I add the filter. I specify what type it is. And because it is a Symfony form, I'm able to pass it Symfony form options. So, for instance, autocomplete. Very easy, very nice. Not a lot of code to write. Then I just need to add my actual filtering, so in that provider. So filtering is done with criteria, so in my case, country. I'm going to pass that criteria to the API query. So over there, yes, it's okay. And then it's going to return me my driver resources like previously. So this is all the code that I needed to have a filter that's autocomplete. And if I look for French drivers, here I am. I'm really happy. Obviously, this is a very nice and easy feature to implement. Again, sorry, ex-teacher, I like summing things up just in case you forgot. So, three things actually, I'm spoiling. You can define what symphony form type with form type, what template with template. I really like that one, that's my favorite. Why? Because previously you had to go all the way down in those config packages folders that I always forget exist. And then you get an error and you're like, oh, what's going on? I don't know. So that makes my life easier. Everything is on the same class. And then a third one that I didn't tell you about is type. Type lets you change the name of your filter, basically. Like the default ones would be money, etc. Same here. And that's optional, obviously. Otherwise, it just uses FQCN. So a great thing with filters is that I can filter my grid, but it lets me link grids together. Like I could connect them with links, with pre-filtered data, for instance. Like let's say that I have this existing grid. I'm not going to bore you how to make a grid. You already know how to make it. But I have this grid of all the horrible things drivers may have said to engineers, right? Like if I click on that button, I can listen to it. And my particular favorite would be to find all of the horrible things that Kimi Räikkönen used to say to his engineering team. I can do that from the driver's grid by adding a link. So I have my team radio grid. I'm going to add the filter. This is a driver number. It's very plain and simple, so I'm just going to use a string filter. Nothing custom here. There you go. And then going on my driver grid, so the one that you saw before, I can add an action, because a link is an action, to the team radio grid, then pass it the actual routing, so the link, and the criteria parameters with the resource, like the driver number in my case. So that's going to create my URL. So here, this is the button on the right. Very beautiful. And if I click it, it should go straight to a pre-filtered grid of my team radios. Okay, so this is actually a feature that, obviously this is a very simple use case, but this is something that we really enjoy, because in our client projects, actually we have to always like link data together. So this saves us a lot of time and a lot of unnecessary views. We can just link grids together and it's much nicer. So, again, nothing special here. We've just improved the DX, let's just say, but these are things that you already knew and already like could do. And they were all added in the 1.14 version of the Sylius Grid bundle, as I mentioned. But we didn't want to forget about who we are building these interfaces for. We are making them for users. So we thought we need to improve the user experience. To do that in modern Symfony apps, that would require probably some Symfony UX. And that means having the reactive behavior, having like a single page app kind of experience. So this is still experimental, but we hope you like it, and Loïc is going to explain it in further details.
Yeah, thank you, Estelle, for this great introduction. Now buckle up and let's take a leap to the future. As Sylius introduced Symfony UX into its tech, we are now able to add superpowers to the grids. Here we go. It's very experimental and it will probably change a bit, but the fundamental principles are there. So, how can we make our grid a live grid? That's a good question, right? First, we need to look at our twig template definition. In Sylius, we have twig template tree of blocks, which we can customize using twig hooks. we need to replace one of the default blocks to use of our future grid components. The main one here is the index template one. Here's an overview of the twig hooks definitions that configure more blocks inside this index template. By default, our grid is just a template which we can override to use our live component instead. In the Symfony web profile page, we can see all the twig blocks, so it's easy to debug. Here is the twig hooks list. Just have a look on the hook named in the blue color, or the hook name Sylius_admin.driver.index.cut on the grid in blue color. This grid hook contains the data table block, which is currently a template, but we will need to change that. We are going to replace that data table block to use our component instead, as you can see, in red color. Now, how are we gonna do it? Replace that block. Here is an overview of a component that we call data table component. It contains basic properties for the grid. The grid property it is the name of the grid to use. The page property is the current page, of course. Criteria for data filtering. Criteria, not an easy one. Sorting, and finally the limit one to specify items per page. So this is some basic properties for the grid to work. Do you remember the hook name Sylius_admin.grid with just the before on the blue color? We just need to write it here and replace the data block with our component and pass the twig variables to our component. So it's very easy. We define all the props that are the twig templates variable to pass to our GD. At equals signals that we use explosion language syntax. It's a common syntax introduced by Symfony and the dependency injection package, I think. And the underscore context variable. Issue with my notes. So the underscore context is a native twig variable from the twig package. So it does not come from the twig hooks package. It comes from the twig. It contains, it's a container. It's a variable that contains all the variables that your twig contains. Yeah, okay. So here is a live demo of our live component grid. We have a pagination without refreshing the whole page. It also changes the number of items with the same UX. We are going from 10 items per page to 25 items per page, and only the data will be updated like this. So that's cool. Another benefit of the live component is you can use it as a Lego piece in any page, especially in details page, of course. You need to indicate the grid name and the criteria for filtering. Here is the live details page of session rates. This displays the drivers for the current sessions. We embark a pre-filtered grid inside the details page with pagination and so on. The good benefit, and my favorite one of this approach, is that we can have multiple grids within the same page, multiple grids with pagination, etc. All of which can be pre-filtered and customized. So right now we cannot do that on any Sylius admin panels. So that's a nice move. So this is okay for the data list. Can we go further? The answer is yes, of course. Now we can go deeper with live component filters. Which filter type needs a specific live component? So here the country filter will use a select filter component. As you can see, you can also use the text input and update the data during input. You can see there with the year input just after that. Yeah, soon. Yeah, we type into the input the year, and the data table is refreshing automatically. These are some of the live components for the built-in filter types. So select filter one is used for our country filter, for example. The string filter one can be used for search input, as we use with our year filter. And the date filter one can be used to filter according to a given period. Now, quick practice for you.
Okay, so we've done a lot of talking, and we want you to actually start working and thinking. And again, I like checking that people remember what I've just said. This is an old teacher habit. So we're gonna ask you 5 questions, and if you get 5 out of 5, you've qualified for our race today. The first one is super easy, all right? You just need to find the odd one out. So like, what's the wrong answer here? Is it AsFilter? Is it AsGrid? Is it AsProvider? Or is it AsResource? So put your hand up for AsFilter, AsGrid. I got 2. AsProvider. Got a few. AsResource. It was AsProvider. The reason why is that it does not exist. But feel free to contribute. Maybe we need it. I don't know. Okay, the second question is super easy if you won the Barcelona Grand Prix in 2016.
Which team did Max Verstappen race for when he won his first Formula One Grand Prix? Easy one, right? Was it Ferrari? Was it Mercedes? Was it Red Bull Racing or Scuderia Toro Rosso?
Okay, Ferrari. Mercedes? Got 1 Mercedes. Red Bull Racing? Okay, and Scuderia Toro Rosso? It was Red Bull Racing. Sorry. Okay, third question. You know the OpenF1 API? Actually, it doesn't include a Teams endpoint, which is a shame, but it doesn't. But I still want to have like a Teams list on my demo. So I'm just like gonna hard code it, and I'm gonna use this simple team class, right? So I've got name and color, nothing special. And again, if I'm a lazy person, I want the grid that matches this team to be generated. But do you remember the command that you needed to run? Was it Symfony console create grid app model team? Symfony console make resource app model team? Symfony console make grid app model team? Or Symfony console make grid app team resource? Sorry. So first one. Okay, good. Second, make resource. Okay, make grid. And the fourth one. Okay, no one got the trap. That's good. Okay, so that's the third one, correct, with my PHP class. There was a trap with the fourth one because it could work if I had a team resource. And I would actually need a resource for routing, but that's another one. Okay, so like that would be the generated grid. By the way, there's an actual demo repo we're going to show you at the end, so you can check it out. Fourth question.
And last one.
No.
No, there's another one. Oh, sorry, I forgot. So we have our driver's grid. Sorry, we have our driver's grid, and we've added this following filter on the grid configuration, add filter here. And now, do we need to use? Now, what should our filter definition look like? Do we need to use the AsFilter attribute, or the AsGrid filter one, or the last one, filter attribute? Do you know?
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that was too easy. Way too easy. But I'm happy at least you remembered. That's good. The last question is the decider question, okay? And it's a Formula 1 question. So there was a plane pilot And on his plane, he had a horse, like written, okay, not like on the actual plane. And so that was the inspiration for the Ferrari logo. But do you know who was the plane pilot? Was it Alfredo Ferrari? Was it Tadzio Nuvolari? Enzo Ferrari? Or Francesco Baracca? This is my decider question. This is how I know if you've qualified for the race. So is it Alfredo Ferrari? Tadzio? No. Enzo Ferrari? Okay. And Francesco Baracca? I have 4 winners, I think. Congratulations. It's actually Francesco Baracca, but I thought it was Enzo Ferrari too. So yeah, congratulations. If you got 5 out of 5, you've qualified for the race. You've won absolutely nothing but knowledge, so you're welcome.
Welcome.
And we wanted to say thank you to everyone who contributed to everything we've presented today. Thank you to you guys. We want to remind you of a few things. So everything we've shown about the Grid Bundle 1.14 is because the Grid Bundle is an autonomous package, everything we've shown you is available on Sylius 1 and Sylius 2, okay? Like e-commerce, not e-commerce, it doesn't matter. All of this you can already implement. Except, obviously, the Symfony UX stuff is still experimental. We would actually love some help from anyone who's knowledgeable about Symfony UX. We would really appreciate. Not staring at anyone in particular here. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed our talk, and thank you very much. And demo is available here. It's on Loïc's GitHub. If you need it, it's over there. So I don't know, any questions maybe? Yes, this is Stefan, I think.
Thank you for the talk. Just one question. Would all the duration be also there without the PHP attribute? We use PHP configuration or YAML or anything else?
Yeah, all the stuff are already available here. Yeah, but you don't have the DX improvement and the grid builder, of course, but it still works.
Actually, this is a good question, and it reminds me that I spent the whole day yesterday on the train updating these configuration files on the documentation. So yeah, you have like, for each of them you have a tab. So PHP class with the attributes and the new stuff, PHP config files like the old way, and then YAML files. So it's all available on the documentation.
Yeah, the provider thing is available with the config file too.
More questions? Okay, thank you so much.